So is leasing a vehicle always a worse deal than buying? A lot of times you'll see common financial advice that says never lease a car. It's bad financial decision. But let's take a look at how leasing compares with financing and what some of the advantages are. We took, for example, in this calculation, a $50,000 car. And you might think that's a lot of money, but right now the average price for a new car is just shy of $50,000. So as a round number, we use that. And we have two columns here. We have a buy column and a lease column. We calculated both of these with no money down, so it's equal. And also we did not calculate sales tax. That way it's apples to apples. Plus, if you want to put money down towards either one of these, you could just pay your tax or your registration. So on a buy right now, interest rates for new cars average roughly 8.5%. For a 5-year loan, that would give you a payment of $1,025. So $1,025 times 5 years, which is 60 months, gives you a total out of your pocket of $61,549 for that car, including the interest. If you lease the same car, they don't use an interest rate, they use what's called a money factor. And we plugged in 0.00385. What does that mean? It roughly equals about the same 8% interest rate. It's a little bit less, but we'll talk about that in a minute. But for the lease, this is a 3-year term, 3-year lease. The monthly payment is about the same. It's just over $1,000, $1,007, so it's, not even $20 less. However, at the end of that lease, 3 years, you don't own the car. You have what's called a residual value of $24,000. What that means is you can just walk away from that car, turn in the keys and walk away, and you're out. But you paid all that money, $1,000 for 3 years. However, if you want to own the car, you can pay that residual value of $24,000 and now you own the car. So you don't have to walk away from the car. You can keep it if you want by paying the residual. You can also finance it. If you think about it, after 3 years, if you wanted to go the same term as 5 years, that's only a 2-year difference. So if you take $24,000 and divide it by 2 years, which is 24 months, if you paid $1,000 a month for 2 more years, you'd own the car, right? That would give you a total payout of $60,000 for that car, which is roughly the same. Don't go by the fact that this is less. In most cases, the lease and the finance would be almost exactly the same in terms of dollars out of your pocket if you calculate it side by side. So you might say, well, why bother leasing? Here's why. At the end of 3 years, you have an out. You have an option. If you want to walk away from your car, you can do that. On a finance, you can't. After 3 years, you still have 2 years worth of payments. What if that vehicle isn't worth $24,000 at the end of 3 years, right? That's about half the value. Do you think a $50,000 car is going to be worth more than half 3 years later? Because if it is, well, when you buy the car, you're in good shape because it's worth more than what you owe. However, in most cases, that vehicle is going to be worth less than what you owe. So if in 3 years you decide, I want to buy another car, you might owe $26,000 on that car. It might be worth $23,000, so you're $3,000 out of equity. On a lease, you could walk away, and you might say, well, what if it's worth more? You can still take advantage of it. If you get to the end of your lease and that car is worth $26,000 and you have a residual of $24,000, you can buy it for $24,000 and sell it for $26,000 and pocket the $2,000. You're not obligated to. You have that option. The thing about a lease, it gives you a flexibility, gives you an out. Just add up the numbers. Sometimes it doesn't make sense. If you add up all the payments on a finance and add up all the payments on a lease and count your residual, sometimes the lease is just way more money. I've seen cases where the amount of money total for a lease is $3,000 or $4,000 or $5,000 less than a finance. If that's the case, just go ahead and do that. You can always buy it if you want. You can even pay cash for it if you want at any point. The other thing about a lease is many times factories and dealers put discounts in leases that they don't do on a buy. Here's why. if you buy a car for $50,000, if that factory that made the car or the dealership that's selling it wants to put a big discount or put some big deal or rebate, if they put, hey, $7,000 rebate on this car, it's going to cheapen the image of the car. That's why you don't see on ads anymore, TV ads, commercials, big rebates. Because when you put a rebate on a car, it kind of diminishes what the value of the car is. People don't think it's that good of a car if you have to put rebates on it. Nobody wants to buy a bargain basement blue light special Kmart car. They want to buy a car that's in demand, that's prestigious. Part of buying a car is the image that goes along with it. So if you buy a car that everybody's talking about big rebates, nobody's going to want to buy that car. So what they do is they put it into the lease. They can hide discounts in a lease easily. For example, this residual value is what makes the payment so low. If they want to make an artificially raised residual, or if they want to use a lower interest rate, or if they want to put the numbers into the lease, you can put a big discount in a lease without making the car seem like a cheapskate car. So many times what you'll find is the discounts offered by the factory or the dealer are baked into a lease where you can't see it. Many times you'll find thousands and thousands of dollars of discounts baked into the lease deal, because that way the manufacturer can offer a low payment but not have to make it look like the car is like a bargain basement, bargain bin vehicle. So if you're looking at a vehicle, even if you're planning on paying cash, even if you're planning on financing, have them calculate the lease payment. Make sure you get the residual value. That's going to be an important part of the calculation. And just add it all up. Add up the lease payments. If it's a 3-year lease, let's say times $800 a month, right? That's 36 times 800. Add the residual and see what the total comes out to be, and see how that compares to a finance or even paying cash, and seeing if the benefit of having a walkaway option after 3 years is valuable to you. Because if the numbers are the same, even if they're close, having that walkaway gives you some financial peace that you don't have to be locked into a car with negative equity after 3 years if you want to switch to something else, or if things change where you don't need the car anymore. Leasing is not always the best way to go, but it's a good option to know about. Don't rule it out just because you've heard leasing is bad, always bad. Compare the numbers, be smart, be an educated consumer, and perform your due diligence on the numbers to see what is better for you. Now, make sure you don't make a decision while you're there at the dealership. Calculate the numbers, review it, do the math, think about it, let it sink in. Don't, act impulsively, because then you might end up with a bad deal. Just compare everything side by side and make sure all the comparisons are equal. Same down payment, same vehicle, all the details are the same, so you don't get switched from one process to another that costs you money.